Okay, Polly.
All right, so being here together in the shared space, we will come into an even deeper experience of that by closing our eyes and allowing ourselves to fall into love. Using the breath, like on the inhale, coming in and opening, and on the exhale, relaxing into the way in which consciousness expands, the way in which the fullness of who I am, our true being, opens up. And again, using the breath, just on a very gentle inhale, feeling the love and the nourishment of this presence that we call air. And on the exhale, arriving here, out of the mind and into the heart. Knowing yourself, knowing ourself as this awake awareness in which all realities arise. And so we have the opportunity to directly acknowledge and experience our true nature as this awareness, our realization that this body-mind arises along with everything else in apparent creation in this spacious awake awareness. We could call this the quantum field. We can call this the heart, because it's in dropping out of our mind and into the heart, which we left. It's interesting that we call it the fall. We fell out of our hearts and into our minds, and we're caught up in polarity, caught up in duality, caught up in judgment. So now in this spacious relaxation, the fullness of the frequency of true nature feels like home. This is a homecoming. This is coming home, relaxing into the one I am. We know that the body-mind arises in this space. We know that our external reality arises in this space. And calling it the quantum field, we have an understanding of how we operate. We operate through frequency. And that frequency is most often experienced as identity. But in this space, we're freeing up, we're dropping the identities, dropping the insistences of the mind, dropping the categories, the definitions, and freeing into the fullness of what is. The experience of this reality as a projection, as an out there in which we move and act and experience what we call life, but the true nature of life is in this space that we access only when we choose. It's always available when we choose to acknowledge and fall into love. And now our experience is that our time together, our goal together, my connection with all of you has to do with living into the love that we are, living into this sacred space as primary, so that we start to know ourselves as this, and we have a body-mind unit through which to express. And so this is the experience of this spaciousness, that as it becomes primary, we become present in a frequency that connects us to our true nature. And in that true nature, there's no suffering, there's no conflict, there's no separation. And so it is. The way in which we identify ourselves is a mental construct. It comes out of experience. But what was occurring to me, what was opening during the meditation for me, was the realization of how, when the mind is not running the show and the mind is fundamentally caught in fear and polarity, when it's not running the show, the identity arises in response to aliveness inwardly and whatever's going on outwardly, but there's no conflict, there's no difficulty. So an identity, our true nature is what shines through once the identity that was created out of the early wounding that we, as a kind of a way to talk about it, I call it that I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or the trance of unworthiness, whatever. That what arose out of that has been running the show. And so one of the reasons I think it's sometimes an intersection in consciousness that's hard to navigate is because the person that was created out of that wounding is concerned about who will be running the show if that one's not doing it. Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes, maybe all of you have had that question. It's like the reality is that the usurpation of identity by fear on behalf of a mind, or the mind on behalf of fear, the usurpation of that identity then seems to have it has a rationale, it has an object, it has a motivation, it has a goal. And so we don't, it gets to be a little uncertain if we don't have that, so that we identify. Is there somebody coming in? Yeah. So I was just, I don't know if this is a question that's up. Sometimes the questions occur to me that do come up, but it's like, who's in charge here? If I let go of that one that I believed I am, and whatever basis, because it's not all bad, right? It's through that identity that we often express our gifts. We often create what looks like relationships that work, right? So I believe that sometimes that may be the difficulty with dropping what I call the psychological me. That we have a true nature that's ready to come forth is not apparent to us, especially when we've had probably many lifetimes living from this identity of I've got to make it happen, and nothing's going to happen without me creating it, or engaging other people, strategies, identities, all of these different facets of the character that's been running the show ever since we concluded that there was something wrong with us, or that we weren't good enough. And we, out of that conclusion, constructed an identity that needed to be in response reaction to the external reality. Now, we've talked about often in this group that the external reality is a projection through the lens of the woundedness. And so that's a kind of house of mirrors experience, because you're trying to do something that overrides or denies your conclusion that I'm not good enough, or I can't do it well, on behalf of the projection of that very conclusion. That's kind of a mind twister, but that's why it's such a difficulty there. The other part, the part that occurred to me during the meditation, was that we don't know what's going to operate it if it ain't that. You know, if it's not my, I'm not good enough and I'm overcoming that and I'm doing my affirmations and my revisioning my true nature or whatever. If that's not running the show, then what is? And that's where I love our opening time together, where I describe our true nature as the awake awareness. When that comes forth through the avatar, which is the body-mind unit, and it's in full expression. In other words, it now has the joysticks on this virtual reality, yeah. And but it's true nature. And so the fullness of that, the frequency of that is the frequency of authenticity and love. So I guess I just wanted to, if anybody had that question, which maybe you didn't, but it may have occurred to you, it just occurred to me during meditation that it might be an issue, right? I didn't run into it in my spiritual awakening, but I can imagine that it would be there as an issue. The power of our true nature in expression is what gives us heaven on earth. That's what I would call, in my romantic analogy, our return to the garden. Yeah, it's like that fullness of that presence, of that awake awareness, that scintillating, vibrating potentiality as awareness expressed through this body-mind unit into this 3D reality, is like that's when we redream this reality. That's when the world changes. And when it occurs for any one of us, our world changes. And we all have had that experience in small ways. That's Yoda barking. Who's that?
It's me also. I'm sorry.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you. Surfing traffic.
Yeah. So with that as an opening, I don't know if anybody has that question or it's occurred to anybody, or if that triggers our response in anybody, some dialogue that we might have regarding that, which basically it's a dialogue around identity and expression. Yeah.
So if you'd like to talk with Polly about that or anything else,
Yep.
go ahead and either raise your hand using the reaction button, or you can wave or put something in the chat and I will pin you. I'll call on you and pin you. By the way, Max and Maura are here, Vanessa's here, Marty's here.
Oh, on Zoom.
Mhm.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Are you raising your hand, Amora, or are you just waving? She's waving.
Waving. Yeah, well, I could ask for our ones here in the space here are on Zoom, if what I just shared made any sense. It was I thought it was a little incoherent actually, but so I'd like some feedback. I'm so happy. This implies that everybody's totally enlightened. This is really good news.
To be honest, I was feeling like I needed to understand it a little bit better, truthfully. I wanted you to repeat a little bit of this.
Yeah.
Deborah's gonna say something.
All right.
Well, you're reading my mind, Yarrow. I just wanted to say it made 100% total sense to me. And it's my lived experience, especially today.
Wow.
Very much today. So just, and as you articulate it, it lights it up more.
Yeah, so to be specific, in today's experience, which aspect of that are you referring to?
To the expression, yeah, I had, well, without putting the big story on, I mean, I could put the story on, but just there's the inner experience and then there's the lived experience today in expression. And it was what you said.
Yeah, there's a way in which I sometimes use a little teaching story that it's as if we bought this really great outfit. And we put it out on the chair or the ottoman or whatever to get up the next morning and put it on. And we get up and it's left without us. It's like these avatars left without the animating connection to true nature. So that we're like, we become more and more like puppets in a virtual reality game, trying to self-generate purpose, trying to self-generate engagement with, but the very nature of who we are has been left. We turned away from it with the belief, I'm not good enough or I'm wrong. We turned away from that. And now we've got these game pieces, these avatars playing all kinds of love games, war games, competition games, achievement games, all of that going on. And there isn't any vitality to it. There isn't, and that's why we experience fear of death, because these avatars are going to die. And as long as as long as we are identified with them, then we are like, oh, there's not much time here. Well, no, there's not much time here, but who are you being, right? That's the question. Who am I being? Because what I have is a limited expression in this particular frequency of this 3D reality. That expression could be described as our human design, as our gender, as our talents, whatever gifts. But that pales in comparison to what's underpinning, what's being lived, what's being arrived at, the fullness of the possibility of what this reality can be if our identity is not stuck in fear, identified as a body-mind unit. That remains to be seen, but in one's own experience, to the degree that that opening occurs, you start to feel what that can be, because you begin to live in a reality of connection to your true nature and thereby to all that is. So, and I don't think of any of this anymore. I do not have it in a category of being spiritual. I believe that it's the nature of reality, and that we've had to have a category of spirituality or sacredness or whatever, because we had a mind that categorized everything and thereby limited it and put it into boxes where we have to go and explore, we have to go on a journey. No, this is it, and this is it. And knowing oneself as that, as the source, as the awake awareness that's alive, looking like this reality, looking like this body, that's when it starts to be full on possibility of what's forthcoming. I believe that the shift in consciousness is beginning to reveal.
So Susan Campbell said it made sense to her, but she would probably not repeat it. And also Vanessa is here on the call too.
Vanessa.
From Costa Rica.
Yeah. Yeah, well, probably you won't be called on to repeat it, Susan, but, and I probably couldn't repeat it either, but the thing that we want to do is to feel what it feels like to have that opening that seems to come through language. Yeah. It's a new reality. Then the new reality is sourced, and when it's acknowledged consciously as to what is sourcing it, rather than the need to get something or aspire to specificity, to have the idea that I can figure it out with my mind and then make it work with external bits and pieces, looking, the power and the freedom that is just intuited when we consider this possibility is like, well, for me, it makes me smile, it makes or laugh even. Yeah. So back to the nitty-gritty of it all. What actually, there's not very much in the way for any of us who would be attracted to being here together in this satsang there aren't any of us who are not looking at what it is that's impeding or keeping me from opening into that, to that self-knowing, into that self-revelation of true nature. And not to be simplistic, but and all of you could answer this question. What keeps us there is a belief about ourselves that we are a limited, fear-based person. We usually have a label, a category on that, so that it's like, I'm not good enough. I don't matter. It's like if you had your virtual reality console here and you had your avatar over here, you would find the little label for your avatar, right? Mommy and daddy didn't love me. I'm not good enough. I don't matter. And then that shapes the behavior and creates the way in which that avatar sees reality as it runs around in its virtual reality. So we're all always coming home. The coming home is about seeing in any moment when you're not free, to seeing, acknowledging, reminding yourself that that limitation is one of your mind's attachment to an early wounded identity. Without which you're just going to be doing what's in front of you to do. But the one that will be doing it is not one that's limited or imposed upon or threatened or in any way. That one without that wound, that one in any moment, and everybody here has moments when that's not running the show, when the woundedness, the identity, the early self-concept is not running the show. And the experience when that's not running the show is the fullness of presence without a mind setting up difficulties. The mind's job apparently is to see through a lens which shows as what is the next problem. So when that's not present, we all have the experience of the peace and the ease and the freedom and the fun of this 3D reality. So whenever it does feel constricted, whenever it does feel problematic, then we can be sure that we know what's creating that. It's an identity. It's an insistence that there's a way that it should be, and it's not that way, and it's probably somebody else's fault, but it could be mine. Yeah, all judgment is self-judgment. So when we do the work at the level of that fundamental self-judgment, and that's dispelled, we simply don't have the distortion lens through which we see others and situations. And so the judgment falls away. When we are, I'll say that again, because I believe it's really important to get this. And it is, and it is your experience whenever you're not caught in the self-judgment. You're not going to be judging others. You're going to be free in that moment. And once you're no longer attached to identification as the body-mind, then there's no self-judgment anymore. And reality just looks like what's arising, what's happening, what's showing up. And then the ease in which you do what's in front of you to do. And the clarity with which occurs to you, because there's nothing to get and nothing to avoid. And isn't that an amazing freedom to not be motivated by the need to get something or to avoid something? And that's actually a way to describe what we call liberation, even enlightenment, because without the need to get or avoid, your true nature as happy, as awake awareness arises, and that's what you experience, and that's the nature of your reality. So it's fascinating to realize that when we talk about liberation or freedom, we're only talking about being liberated and freed from one's own mind. I think one reason I like the story of the fall so much, the garden story, is because it's so specifically what goes on. I mean, it's very, very clearly delineated what happened. You believed your mind and you were caught in polarity. And from that point on, you saw things as black and white, good and bad. And the guilt, the fear, and the shame set in. And then you were truly out of the garden.
It's all out.
We're all flat. I love that question from Byron Katie. Who would I be without that thought? I've told this story many times. I was once babysitting with my eldest granddaughter. She was 3 years old at the time. She's 18 now. And I was holding her in my arms while she took a nap. And I was working with a woman here on Maui. His name was Lisa. And I was doing the Byron Katie work with her. And I said, so we got to the part where I asked the question, so Lisa, who would you be without that thought? The thought that she was working with was that he doesn't love me. So I said, who would you be without that thought? And there was this huge silence. And I said, Lisa, you can't even think the thought that he doesn't love you. Now, what would it be like for you? Totally silent. Lisa, you can't even think that thought. What would that be like? Zadie, my granddaughter, sat up in my lap. She rubbed her eyes and she said, happy, Lisa, you'd be happy. So, kids get it. It's like, duh. Right? So the mind is where the gnarly nest of the vipers prevails, and it's always ready to strike.
Yeah, Vanessa.
Hi, Pali.
Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, everyone. And this is more of I don't know if I have a question, but I just wanted to share a little bit. It's interesting when you say that the need to get or to avoid something, we're free from that. And I'm just recognizing how relationships reinforce that practice, how it just is in my face, how not free I am from it. In the process right now of recalibrating and renegotiating a very important relationship. And we're practicing radical honesty. And I was just had a moment this morning where I just felt fragmented, and I was on the floor crying, and I was telling I was recognizing I felt fragmented. Like I could see my 26-year-old self wanting to just go up and leave and walk out the door and just like totally get out of this situation that's not giving me what I thought I would get, because we're having to recalibrate it. And it's like I'm 2-3 different people, because there's this awareness, and then there's also me in this present moment recognizing, oh, you're caught up, and then so I guess my question is like, I wish I can just quickly flip the switch and turn off, turn the thought around or the feelings around or that 27-year-old around, but it also felt like she wanted space to just like
Mhm.
cry and throw a tantrum, but it's draining at the same time. So I don't know if it's better to give that space or to just like go through the 6 steps. That I didn't try earlier. I just,
That, yeah. Yeah, that protocol is really powerful for exactly this kind of experience. When you get caught up in the experience of feeling like there's the feeling can take you to a more specific, maybe not quite so fragmented version of yourself who's having this issue. So it's like, what is the feeling? Even if the feeling's fragmentation, I don't know that was the feeling. But the feeling, what would be the feeling, Vanessa, if you can, when all this,
it's like, oh, we're changing, or things are changing, and it could. So my 2 themes are either I'm not good enough, or well, that's mostly it. I'm not good enough. That's why this is happening,
Mhm.
and that's the one of the main stories. So the younger self wants to just, okay, fine, I'm not even going to deal with this. I'm just going to go. But then there's a part that says, no, that's not true. That's not what's happening right now. There's something else.
right?
So
Do you have an early memory where the I'm not good enough arose out of that experience?
yes, childhood, like 5-year-old overhearing aunts say, oh, too bad Vanessa's not as pretty as her sisters.
Right,
So
yeah. Yeah, and so at that point, that got installed. So it's to be kind to ourselves about the way in which this runs us, because it can sound, like, well, yeah, and then I thought that, and now my whole life's been, but it's an installation. It's an energetic installation. So it's like that got installed. I'm not good enough. I'm not the one. I'm not the pretty one. I'm not the one. All of that starts to, now that has a frequency. Part of that frequency is fear about dealing with the external, right? So when the model that I use, that I think is pretty close to a kind of kindergarten physics, if there is such a thing. But the model that I use is the frequency of that installation of that woundedness that's created a distortion field through which you both perceive and receive the information of the external reality. So when something, you see 2 people sitting across the room talking, it may seem to you like, oh, why did I wear this dress? They're noticing, it might be something like that, because you have a distortion field that had to do with that early wounding conclusion. So knowing that, I want you to know that the one that knows that does not have that. Awareness does not have the conclusion, I'm not the pretty one, or I'm not good enough.
yes,
Awareness is your true nature. So now it's as if we've confiscated awareness on behalf of this unavoidable but never true conclusion that now informed our avatar and is running around in our 3D reality, playing the character with the label, I'm not good enough. So right now, what we want to do, the reason that we get to this place of this early experience is so that we are, you and I together now, and everybody is having the experience of, we can see that little drama, we can see what you unavoidably concluded, but it's awareness that's seeing it, it's consciousness that's seeing it. And what it's seeing is actually like, it would be like the character you're playing in the play. Right? On the stage.
yeah, totally. That was I felt that presence. That's why I was saying it felt like fragmented, because then it felt like I was having a fight with this other younger me that said, well, wait, I have something to say.
Right.
This is important.
Right. Yeah. And this awareness that we're pointing to right now is the one that can say to that aspect of that early conclusion, I'm here now. I'm the one you've been waiting for. What do you want to say? We can say it. I am here with you. Because even though this sounds like it's a kind of schism, it's not actually, it's just a step on the way to integration. But that little girl that had something to say, but didn't get to say it because she was too shy or felt like she wouldn't be heard, that little girl has been waiting for you as awareness. Right. It's when that awareness shows up, and it's like the little girl, like my little granddaughter, sitting on your lap, and you can say to that little Vanessa, we got this, sweetheart. What do you want to say? Right. Now, you may not be able to get to that until you've done, even sometimes when it seems perfunctory, this whole experience of, I forgive myself for believing something that was unavoidable, but not true. It sounds a little rote, I get that, but it has some power to it. It has the expression of truth about what happened and what needs to happen now. Because forgiveness is like alchemy. It's like dissolving that gnarly ball of whatever, to dissolve that so that you're free of that earliest conclusion. I'm not good enough. I'm not the pretty one. I don't matter, right? And you as awareness are the one who can bring the forgiveness into the dynamic. When you do that, you can be more cognizant of the aspect of that, of where that wound has been seated and how it's been influencing everything from that point till now, right? But that awareness that you have of that is the most potent piece to get. Is that if you can see it, you're not it. It's like all of a sudden you're seeing what it is that you've been caught by, and you were trying to move forward. You didn't realize there was a ball and chain around your left leg. Now you see what it was, right? And it's not you. And in the seeing of it, it falls away. It's gone.
Mhm.
So the shift in perspective is everything. The shift in identity is at the heart of it. And the forgiveness is the way, is the mechanism to use.
Thank you.
So, thank you for sharing that.
Anyone else have a question or a thought? Again, we're all zonked out over here. I don't know what you're doing today.
I know. We kind of jumped into the middle, I think. I think it jumped into the middle. Yeah. You know, there's a gift in every moment of allowing yourself to see whatever the mind is trying to construe or catch you in. And in that seeing, to allow it to fall away. There's a kind of alchemy from seeing anything. It's the unseen. It's what we don't know about ourselves that runs us. That includes the woundedness that we've lived with this whole incarnation and prior ones. That we just thought that's just the way it is. I just don't get to have. I don't get to be first. I don't get to have what I want. And that is a frequency. And I think we talked last week about, you know, when we talk about how we create our reality, the whole model that quantum physics is bringing forth now, that my kindergarten model can really be of help. The frequency of I'm not good enough goes into the quantum field. And then in whatever arises in response to that, the quantum field is not making a judgment. right? We make the judgment. We are the quantum field is an aspect of who we are, its source, its cause. And then the frequency of our limited self-judgment goes into the field and it shows up as a reality. It's not going to decide, well, she really, really likes herself, but she just doesn't know it yet. So maybe she deserves this or that, right? And it's not even as obvious as what it seems that I'm describing. It's a very fine line here between equating success, money, property, well-being, happy kids, whatever, with the idea that I'm at a high frequency. And then it turns out that that person that had all that checks out in a couple of weeks because whatever, who knows why. So it's not an equation you can make with an external condition. It is the equation you can make with your internal condition, which then will be reflected in your external condition, but perhaps not in the ways that you have been programmed to believe that it should be, like money, success, power, whatever. Does that make sense? Who am I talking to? So frequency is the name of the game, and that's and all. But you can't fool Mother Nature. You can't fool the quantum field. The frequency is even either joyful or it's contracted. The contraction is the information into the field. The joyfulness is a connection with the field. I'm knowing oneself as that, as awake awareness. An amazing reality. That's what I know for sure. The good news is that we can grok it more and more. We're not caught up to the degree that prior inhabitants of this frequency, this reality, through collective conditioning and rules and cultural conditioning and limitations. We're free now. We're free now to understand. We're free now to experience consciousness as cause and know ourselves as that. Hey, we're going to be meditating soon because
I think we're going under 2. We have about 8 more minutes before the top of the hour. Really, anybody in the room or anybody in the Zoom room who has a question or a thought? Oh yeah, okay, yes. Mahalia, is that?
Yes.
Great.
Where is she?
Hi, right here,
Right there.
right next to you on the screen.
We're right here together.
Okay, so so just to sort of bring this back into a very simple bodily felt experience for this body mind here, it's when there's no I, but when this thing, when life living itself through this, when the mind stops, or to the degree to which it stops, and then also it's the experience is amplified for me when my heart is open. So mind stops, heart amplifies or expands that, then there is just a sense of vastness. And I wanted to just see if what your experience is. I know it's multifaceted, but just to get your experience of moment to moment, that kind of description of the experience of the awakeness when it's in full bloom.
Yeah, well, yeah, the thing that's not there is the idea that there's a problem. And that points to the vastness that you come into, that we all come into. But once there is not a person, see, it's only the person, to do a little the person was created by the self-judgment, right? And then that self-judging person sees everything through the lens of that shouldn't be that way, or they're not loving me or whatever. So the fundamental installation of a fear-based person, which we could call an ego, if when that's running the show, then everything is looking like a problem. There's that old koan, I think from Lao Tzu, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. This is what it's pointing to. The chopping wood and carrying water after enlightenment simply is just, it's that vastness that you're talking about. It's just, this is it. And it's this feeling, so that the experiences of not being contained or confined to the body mind, and not having the mind run the show. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yes.
And you all of you here have many moments of that. It's like that, but because the other has been so prevalent, it can sneak in really quick and take you away into the belief and cause and effect, basically. Because what is not happening in this reality is cause and effect. That might stir up some discussion, right? But we have it posited out there as this and that, and the materiality and the mechanism and our insistence that there is cause and effect, that there is linearity, and then we get caught up out there. And then we will be functioning to try to make the right kind of cause to get the effect that we prefer. But that's what that's all gone in dropping the personal me. Life is happening, and it's so much. So the basic pieces of it are, there's no judgment, so there's no self-judgment anymore. So there's no judgment in one's present experience. One is in the present moment without the linear time trying to insert itself or impose itself, which means that thinking becomes a function. It's like, I need to look at my bank account to see if I can buy the ticket. It's as functional as that. Before that, the frequency of the woundedness pulled in the thoughts that matched the wound. And so our thinking was kind of compulsive, and it would have an internalized abuser, and it would have an internalized critic. So all of that goes. So now it's very quiet. It's very quiet and inwardly, yeah. And vast, like you said. And it's happy, right? It's peaceful. It's everything that our true nature already is. We don't have to create what's already true. We have to let go. The 13th century mystic Meister Eckhart said that spiritual awakening is a matter of subtraction. And that's reflected in a part of a Hindu approach to enlightenment, which is called neti, not this, and letting everything go. And then the fullness of who we are arises. That's really where I kind of started today, with that sense of that vastness, because we're so accustomed to having specificity around identity, around personality, around our ways of behaving, our ways of getting what we want, our ways of serving, our ways of meaning and purpose, and all of that falls away. And then you're present, and the arising of the present moment becomes really obvious. So the sense of oneness occurs because there's no judgment between you and reality. And the feeling of freedom and ease, because there's no mind with limitation or criticism or judgment going on. So that's it.
Thank you, Polly. So we're at the top of the hour. I don't know if that, are you wanting to say a question? I keep seeing you pop in and out. Okay.
I had one, but it passed.
Okay, all right, good. Well, just, yeah. All right, then, so we're gonna pause here, and anyone who wants to leave either from the room here or from the Zoom room, you're welcome to, just to kick back, and lots of people here lay down, go into meditation, and enjoy the next 45 minutes of going into
The field.
the true nature field. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you all. So good to see you. Yes.
Aloha.
Aloha.
What's,
Explain, thank you.
oh, thank you, honey.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Aloha. Love you, Polly, and everyone.
I love you, sweetheart. Sorry. Thanks, sweetheart. Yeah, yeah. That's Irma?
Yeah, I'm staying.
Oh, good. Was Miyasa with you?
We came together, but she has a dermatology appointment, so she's leaving and coming back.
All righty. To get you.
Yes,
Well, we have a nice meditation group here.
yes.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so let's begin.
Let us begin. Falling into love.
On, our camera is on.
That's right. Yeah.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi,
The meditation's over. I was just gonna say goodbye. Hi, Faith. I don't know you. How's it? How are you doing out in Inverness, Dev?
good. The road was open.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just got here today because yesterday was impossible to get here. The
Oh,
road,
wow.
yeah. So I still have the question that I texted you, which is when you guys talked the other night, is the 12th still the right day to fly back?
Yeah, I did text you back, I think, but that's an issue we have.
Okay.
But yeah, the answer is yes, the
Okay.
12th. And as I said that time, I thought I said, there hasn't been anything official said by the whole group or anything. But in terms, the retreat, starts on the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and then you fly home on the 12th. And I believe that's correct.
Okay, great.
But it hasn't been, I certainly am not the one who makes it official. But nobody does, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Was the big mess the refrigerator?
Yeah, it was the freezer and it was the water all over the road on the way here.
Oh,
The
okay.
freezer was, it's an old refrigerator, so it was covered with frost, and then the frost melted and
Yeah.
made a big mess on the floor of the bottom of the freezer.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
my best to clean that up, and then the guys that are in charge of the roads cleaned the roads up. So all the messes are better now today.
Fantastic. Okay, good. Well,
All right. And then I go back to Forest Knolls on Friday.
okay, and I'll see you one way or the other on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We
Do you know?
have, well, Claire was checking with Kent and I was checking with Geo, and if it's this kind of stormy, it might just be on Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. I'll wait
Right.
to.
But I'm in. I'm gonna be there wherever.
Okay. I
Okay.
want to let you know that yes, she got a diagnosis from her friend Alan, who's an MD,
Yeah.
bronchitis.
Okay.
So there's no pneumonia going on.
Okay, good. And it's not COVID, it's just, bronchitis. She's got it. Okay, well, I hope she gets better so soon.
Yeah.
Okay,
Eh,
does she stay then at her house or come over to Ron's?
Well, she has been, but she was going to come to Ron's today, but she didn't. She'll go there tomorrow.
Okay, all right, take good care, love you, nice to
You
see you.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye.